Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 498, Mr. Somich.
Huzzah!
Boy, you okay? You seem a little like Vegas maybe took a little something extra out of you this weekend.
I'm a little tired. I gotta tell you, the commute, it can be a little brutal back and forth. It's the 5 a.m. or the 6:30 a.m. flight. You got to get to the airport at 5:30 on Saturday, and then it's the flight that gets in at midnight on Sunday. So it's two very, very long days, and I may or may not have had a little bit of craps action on Saturday night as well, and maybe had a little bit later of a night because it ended up being a 2.5-hour session, which usually a good sign in craps.
it at least means you had a lot to drink and had a good time for 2.5 hours. If you can last 2.5 hours without dipping into your bank more than once, I think that should be the goal. And then if you profit, then that's just awesome.
It was one of those sessions too where like the first roll, very good, up immediately. Then the next hour just grinds it all the way down. I'm down to my last $50, put 25 on the 4 and 10, and end up the guy craps out with me having 500 on the 4 and 300 on the 10. Get all the way back up with my original entry and then some, and then just had a blast because like you feel like you're free rolling at that point because you're like you were done and all of a sudden you're just back, baby.
That's awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. I like playing craps. The same reason I'm playing blackjack. Just sit there with play minimum bets. For me, I just like sit there and have a good time. And to me, it's a lot better than slot machines. I feel like I have a little bit more of an advantage when it's not the slots.
Well, it's also like craps specifically and blackjack to a lesser degree. It's a group game, right? And so everyone at the table's having a good time. I like if I'm winning, I'm tipping the dealer, so they're all about the whole thing, putting them on the pass line, all that jazz, picking numbers, and it makes it more fun. And so it's just a blast to be playing craps with a good group of people. And usually, if you're sticking around that long, it generally means there aren't like just the immediate 0.7 out rolls, which get people away from the table. And so you have that same group of people that are all experiencing the highs and lows with you through the process, which is one of my favorite parts about craps.
Well, hopefully you were able to experience some of the Woodbine highs and lows with this weekend. Some big races there, and we'll also talk about Churchill Downs, the first Derby and Oaks prep races of the year, and it's September 16th when it happens. So yeah, that's normal. A lot to talk about. Let's get into it, buddy. Riders up! All right, Mike, we'll start off with race 6 at Woodbine on Saturday, September 16th. It started the, middle, late pick 5, the latter of the two pick 5s that they had at Woodbine. And tip of the cap to you because this was an angle that you have found profitable multiple years at Woodbine on the big days. Dylan Davis, Christophe Clement just singled it, right? Carson's run with an unbelievable last to first run here in the Summer Stakes to get the win in the Breeders' Cup, winning you're in for the Juvenile Turf, Mike.
He looked awesome. I mean, like you can see it right there in the comments. Reserved, angled 10 wide. It still just absolutely rolls to the front. Really a never in doubt win once you saw him making the move on the outside there. I thought Dylan Davis rode him very well just to kind of keep him back on what was, I would say a decent pace. It was honest, right? They went 24-24 essentially for the opening 2 quarters in this race and rolled right on by. I got to say, though, right when the race ended, the first thing I thought was, how good is Galibrand if this is the effort we see from Carson's run here? Because we were all high on Galibrand going into the race where Carson's run ran second to him with anticipation at Saratoga. And then Carson run just flatters the crap out of that race by absolutely dominating this one. And with my boy Prince, who, we talked about with some of the scratches, we were expecting going to have a lot easier of a time up front. And really, yeah, they were moving, but, pretty comfortable, I thought. And just got run down by Carson's run here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the Natalma Stakes, another 1-turn mile on the turf that we'll talk about after this. They went much quicker in that race. And in this spot, my boy Prince, he was coming off, I think, a 3-week layoff. It was kind of a quick turnaround from having done the stakes. Now, when he broke his maiden, it was his second start, and it was about 3 weeks after he debuted when he finished second. But it's different when you're coming back in 3 weeks to face maidens versus you're coming back in 3 weeks to face grade 1 company and a horse in Carson's run with all the back class that he had. As far as the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf goes, I would definitely be interested in, my boy Prince, I think, if he gets an inside draw at Santa Anita for the juvenile turf, and if there happens to be no issue with like pace, if there's not a lot of sprinters, because we have the juvenile turf sprint is now a race again, so you could see some of the speed go there. Carson's Run, I'm afraid to play him in the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf, Mike, because it's 2 turns instead of 1, so he couldn't unleash it. Not nearly as long of a stretch as Woodbine has, but he's also, if he's coming from dead last in a field of 14, and you got a bunch of Euros in there, it makes me nervous playing Carson's Run, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that race, the With Anticipation at Saratoga. They went 25, 51, and 3, and that's why he was only 3 lengths off the lead versus where he was in this race, where they go 24, 24, and all of a sudden that's 15 length difference from 48 seconds to the half to 51 seconds to the half. So Carson's Run a lot further back. I agree with you. Santa Anita probably not the best course for Carson's Run to try and get a W in the Breeders' Cup. But, this was an impressive race. And if Galibrand, again, we also have to understand what Euros are coming in. You always have to think about the Euros that are shipping in as well. But with Galibrand, who I think should probably be one of the favorites in there, and Carson's Run running second in that race and then improving off it, this horse is at least a little interesting. I think a very good horse underneath in the exotics, because you're going to get that run. It's going to be hard for Carson's Run to win the race, though.
Chris Mallow with a great question in the chat. You don't want to play Dylan Davis a 6-1 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf? Listen, if the Breeders' Cup was back at Woodbine, I think we would play him, actually.
What are the odds? Like, if I gave you -110 both ways that Dylan Davis rides him in the Breeders' Cup, would you take the yes or the no?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would take the yes because it's Christophe Clement, but I get where you're going with this. It's if this was in the Naira circuit where they were going to be holding it, where Dylan Davis is based, you would absolutely, I think, say yes on that. But for him to give up all those mounts and go to California for one race, he could. I think Clement would bring him because he's been the jockey on this horse from the get-go.
See, I would take the no. I don't think Dylan Davis gets. I think he gets taken off the horse, unfortunately, because he's done absolutely nothing wrong on Carson's Run. But when you have the colony of jockeys that will be at Santa Anita that weekend, and the fact that it is Christophe Clement, who I would say Dylan Davis is like the C or the D ride for Christophe Clement. He's the A ride when you ship up to Woodbine. He's the A ride when you ship in some other places. But when it's in New York, he's probably the 3rd or 4th choice for Christophe Clement. So I would be surprised, unless Clement has 2 or 3 in the race, if Dylan Davis stays on Carson's Run.
Chris Mallow says it's either him or Joel. Does Joel have him out? He might with my boy Prince. I do want to, before we move on, I just want to give a quick shout out to Joel Rosario. I thought he rode this horse about as well as he could have. And if you look at the way that, let's see, Western World pressed him early, he ends up finishing 6th, beaten 13 lengths. The 7 and the 9 tried pressing or running with my boy Prince early. They're 8th and 9th. Like, they were never involved once they got around the turn. So a good look for my boy Prince. But yeah, I mean, if it's not Davis, it's got to be Rosario, right?
You would think it's Rosario. Look, I don't think my boy Prince goes to the Breeders' Cup. I think my boy Prince is a better horse on synthetic, and that was really one of the big issues here. That the distance and the synthetic hurt him. He's never run on a 2-turn race before. Are you really going to send him to the Breeders' Cup for a first-time 2-turn horse when the buyer went down 20 points almost going from synthetic over to turf? To me, there's a lot of question marks with my boy Prince. I don't think you end up shipping him out there.
Gary Barber and Mark Cassie, 3 of the 5 horses in the top 5, and none of them won. That's like, what are the prop odds on that one going to be? He gets 3 horses in the top 5, and none of them win. Like, I thought go with Gusto Ranwell. She was one of the 2 fillies in this race, Mike.
Yeah, go with Gusto Ranwell. Arosa, really the disappointment here, ends up running second to last in this spot. Yeah. I think we both expected better things from her, especially since she stayed in this race, which again, I mean, if you listen to the Magic Mike show on Thursday, I thought she was the one that was going to stay in. She does. I guess one of the 2 fillies that stays in, she does. But she runs poorly. And I didn't really see an excuse either. It seemed like she had a pretty good spot and just didn't have the kick to go with the boys once they started running.
Yeah, she had a nice rail trip and just couldn't capitalize once they came off the turn. We'll move on to the race 8 here on Saturday. This was the Johnny Walker and Natalma Stakes, another Grade 1 races, the Breeders' Cup winning. You're in for the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I wish there was a way to shorten that a little bit. Cherie DeVoe with She Feels Pretty. My goodness, this was my favorite winner of the whole day, whole weekend. And not just because she dominated by 4 1/4 lengths. Look at how fast she ran, and how badly she demolished these foes. I mean, she beat the piss out of Dazzling Star, who didn't have the perfect trip, but my God, she made Dazzling Star look like an American, not an Appleby Godolphin.
Well, you look, they come home in sub 12 seconds too. So phenomenal and final quarter or 16th of a mile there as well. And this is one of those where we pick these early, and you pick any pick 5 before you see what the actual race odds are. When this horse was around 10-1 with about 2 minutes to post, I was like, oh shit, like this horse is gonna run, because it's Sherry DeVoe, who's 20-1 on the morning line, shipping in from a race that from a, what was it, Ellis Park race, where the horse won but wasn't really all that impressive, and it kind of felt like a collapse. But you've got Velasquez, who picks up the mount. It's a $10,000 sire fee on Caraconte. The horse sells for $240K. It's just like, this horse is gonna run, and she ran. She looked phenomenal in this spot. I am interested in her in the Breeders' Cup. I would assume Velasquez is going to be there. DeVoe went right to Twitter afterwards, said this horse is 100% going to the Breeders' Cup. We'll see her in 6 weeks. So this one I thought was really impressive, and this is one that I would respect moving forward as well, because this was a nice turn of foot, a nice kick, and she absolutely flew home. I mean, they went sub 24 the final quarter. I mentioned the sub 12 final 16th. I mean, this is a player. This is a runner.
When I was doing the replay analysis for youtube.com/racing dudes, she got to about the 3/16 8 pole, and I just started talking about why I had liked her to win this race, because I could see that she was going to win, and just was like, you see her long legs, like those chestnut legs, she's just extending, and it just, every step she was getting farther away. Such a beautiful filly. Now, it wasn't an overly impressive race that she won at Ellis Park. It was only by a neck, but she did beat some good horses in there. I believe there was the Chad Brown horse. I got to pull up my notes because I lost the thought in my head. 3 horses from that race won their next starts, including the runner-up. And the runner-up in that Ellis Park maiden race for She Feels Pretty was a 3-1 favorite who was loose on the lead. So the fact that she was able to reel that horse in, go get him, that's also a great sign, like you're talking about, for the Breeders' Cup. So again, it's too hard for these turf races, especially the juvenile races, Mike, for us to say, hey, this is who I really like. But this is one that I think we really like right now.
She's a player, and it'll be interesting to see what her odds are. She wins the debut at 7-1, wins here at 8-1. The question is going to be, what price do we get on Breeders' Cup Day? Is it going to be, morning line 15, bet down to 7? Is it going to be morning line 8, bet down to 5? The price for her is going to be really, really interesting. But you got to love the fact that she was broke from the 10 post here and was able to still do what she did with, again, a good trip, but not like, oh my God, what a fantastic trip here. I mean, she had a little bit of trouble early. She had to go wide around the far turn. And Woodbine is a forgiving track in that sense, especially with the one turn where you're able to make these big moves down the long stretch. And you have that sweeping turn, so you don't get caught as much when you do go wide. But still very, very impressive here from She Feels Pretty.
Rob says, I bet this one, DeVoe's winning everywhere. Yeah, she's it's nice to see that she's getting these grade 1 style horses, because a couple years ago when she first really was blowing up on her own, we said, like, this is, you give her a couple of years, when she gets the quality of horse that she had when she was Chad Brown's top assistant for so many years, look out, because she's phenomenal. So great to see that. Yeah, but I'm with you. I'm worried about the odds here.
20% for the year now for Sherry DeVoe off 211 starters. And when you look at where she's starting horses, that's pretty darn good considering the crop that she's getting. And this was her first grade 1 victory. So congratulations to break the grade 1 Sherry there.
Oh, that's right. It would have been. Yeah. I didn't even think about, I completely forgot about that one. Of course, there are no odds right now for the juvenile fillies turf. I was looking to see if anybody had anything posted. I was just curious to see what she was going to go off as.
I'll see if there's anything overseas yet.
Well, Mike takes a look at that, pull it up. Go ahead.
I know there were futures up. There are futures up for a lot of the Breeders' Cup races right now. So they have Turf Sprint, Dirt Mile, Filly and Mare Turf, Sprint, Mile, Distaff, Turf, Classic. So none of the 2-year-old stuff yet. None
of the 2-year-old. That makes sense. It's way too up in the air with who's even running. Dr. Tang says, I like Sherry DeVoe over Linda Rice any day. I think that's everybody. Other than Saratoga Slim. I think Saratoga Slim's still on.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Oh, all right. Let's move on. Race 9. This was the feature race of the day. A Breeders' Cup winning for the mile. It was the Woodbine Mile, Grade 1, Master of the Seas, 2-5 favorite for Charlie Appleby and the Godolphin homebred. It's just, my goodness, this race was never in doubt once William Buick gave him the green light, was it, Mike?
Pretty impressive considering Master of the Seas didn't break. And they didn't go all that fast early for a mile race. They came home very quickly. Again, sub 12 in the final 2/16, sub 24 for the final quarter. And Master of the Seas went from last to first here and was just kind of dawdling behind what I thought, again, wasn't a very fast pace. I thought Warbomber actually had a decent shot around the far turn if he could extend. He couldn't. Master of the Seas kept going right on by. Cheryl Spite, I thought, ran a pretty good race considering how late he got going, because he really waited to get it moving and ended up running up into second here. Lucky Score ran pretty well, but this one, like you said, never in doubt. I mean, Master of the Seas, clearly the class of this field, absolutely gobbled them up once they turned for home. And we'll see where this one goes. I mean, I would assume Breeders' Cup here, but we've seen the Appleby move where he sends them over, he sends horses to Woodbine and then does not send them on to the Breeders' Cup. So we'll see what Master of the Seas does, but I loved the North American turf. I'll tell you that. I mean, Master of the Seas absolutely flew home once he got it in gear.
I am curious to see what he'll do too. I would assume he'll come back to the Breeders' Cup Mile. We saw how he did with Modern Games, won the Woodbine Mile, and then came here. But this is a tough one because he's kind of at least he's been lightly raced. Like he had a few races at Maidan where he didn't look that great, and then he took a lot of time off, and then he raced once at Ascot and had that Group 2 win, and that's what made Appleby go, okay, this could be a really good miler for me. Sends him to Woodbine. It's just hard based off of those two races, especially this one at Woodbine when, let's be honest, he beat 5 Woodbine horses, 3 of them Gary Barber, Mark Casse. Yep. It's hard to use this as a great data point to say why he should win the mile.
Yeah, it is. The one thing I would note is maybe this horse just wants firm turf. A lot of the races overseas, you see a lot softer turf. And then when you look through his form, he's got the good firm in a couple of these races. And those he's either won or run second in. And all of those are grade Group 1 or Group 2 overseas. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of those European horses that just wants a little bit less given the ground, and 100% got that at Woodbine and looked phenomenal over it. That would be a positive sign for going to Santa Anita, where you're going to have a very firm turf compared to what you see over in Europe.
Yeah, Chris Mel says Turf Mile is a mess. I agree. We still got, luckily, with this race, we still have 6-7 weeks before we need to make a pick.
We'll Costa Creed and move along.
Anyway, that's a decision you can make. We did have Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks prep races for 2024 over the weekend at Churchill Downs. Crazy. We're not even done with it. Like, we're still like in the middle of Breeders' Cup season, and Churchill's like, hey, what about next May? Okay, fine. Nobody died in this race, so we're happy about that. Vivi's Dream wins the Grade 3 Pocahontas Stakes by almost 9 lengths. The Rare Kenny McPeak favorite that wins a graded stakes race. I was surprised by this one, Mike.
I was too, but really benefited from the pace here. You see, they go 22.3 out for the first quarter of a mile. We talked about the fast come home times. We're not going to talk about that in these 2 races at Churchill, let me tell you. Note the final time, 136.45. That'll be relevant in a little bit, trust me. Look, again, the pace setup was beautiful here. Vivi's Dream was able to sit behind a couple leaders that just going way too fast. You can see Vivi's Dream, the only one who really closed, so sitting 4th after a quarter of a mile. Second, third, and fourth were in second, first, and third after a quarter of a mile. So the last 2 horses didn't really do much here. It was really those 4 that ran. And once Vivi's Dream kind of kicked it in gear, it was just over. I mean, this was a dominant performance. It's tough because I like the fact that these aren't mile and a 16 2-turn races, because it's tough to do a mile and a 16 2 turns for a 2-year-old right now. I kind of wonder what would have happened if this was a mile and a 16 2-turn race at the same time. There's 0 chance to go 45.55 seconds to the half if that happens. And that may have changed the outcome a little bit, because what you saw was the 3 leaders who were dueling get absolutely left in Vivi's Dream's dust once she turned for home and was able to kind of just walk on by, because she wasn't exactly flying. She wasn't stumbling home. Again, remember that word. But she ran well enough here, but this to me is just a heavy fade when we get to Santa Anita, because perfect setup. The horse ran well, but was not overly impressive from a time perspective. I can't take too much out of this. And the horses behind Vivi's Dream, I mean, they're not world beaters, man. There's a reason McPeak was 1 point or 6 to 5 in this spot. It's because it wasn't a ton in this race. And so for me, this is just one of those spots where I'm not going to take too much from this, and I'm going to hope people take a lot of it and decide to bet Vivi's Dream off it.
Well, you know they will, because she got the ship that out for this race too, right? I just didn't. There was a lot I didn't like about this, but I also didn't. You had 3 fillies all scratch out of the race. Yep. I would have been curious to see what Reigning Sugar could have done. I think it affected the pace a little, although I don't know how it would have affected the pace in a positive way if some of those horses stayed in.
They would fly.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to pass on everything out of here. This one, I didn't really have a strong opinion in this race like I did the next one we'll talk about. Out of this, there wasn't really anything here. Chris Malice says Pratt's ride on the 9 Hot Beach, who kind of set the pace with the 7, was criminal. Do you agree with that?
I don't want to say criminal. I mean, because the horse sat off the pace the last time at Ellis and was not able to get home. It was a stumbled start. You knew the horse had a ton of pace. One broke with the maiden over Churchill going 5 furlongs. I mean, you would have liked Pratt to back off a little bit versus try and stay right there, and clearly had the most finish of any of the horses that were on the lead. Was second, like I said, at the quarter mile point. Ends up running second and being able to beat the other 2 horses, one that was in front, one that was right behind. So I wouldn't go as far as saying criminal, because we knew this was going to be a fast horse, and also had the inside speed as well. So the 7, 8, 9 were the 3 that went out, and the 7 was technically the inside horse in that spot. So I don't hate the idea of it, but I don't know. I mean, it's a tough race.
Well, that race was fast compared to the Grade 3 Iroquois Stakes, which was 2 races later at Churchill Downs, another 1 mile race. This one, a prep for the Derby. It's so freaking early to be. I mean, we're 8 months away from the races, almost 7.5 months. So we're not going to talk about these horses in terms of Derby and Oaks. We're thinking Breeders' Cup still with these horses. But West Saratoga gets the job done for Larry Demerite. I didn't even know who this trainer was. I couldn't pronounce his name. But West Saratoga gets the job done with a 12.5 to 1 upset. This was bad, right? I can't find anything nice to say about this race other than, hey, a small time connection in Kentucky Derby prep race. That is good.
Yeah, there you go. That's a way to find the positive. I was just bummed from the start. I mean, I like the 7 horse who ends up getting scratched out of this race, and I think would have had a pretty good shot considering what we saw here. Gettysburg Address, who was 12 to 1 on the morning line, Son of Constitution. I'll be interested to see where he shows up for Brad Cox next time out. I mean, just look at the time. They're almost nearly a second slower than the girls 2 races before. This was not good. Risk It looked good or looked okay, but not able to finish the job. You look at like Seize the Gray, another horse I think a lot of people are interested, didn't run very well. I thought Patriot Spirit had a shot. That horse just runs off early and has absolutely nothing late. And this is just one of those races where they go 22.26 or 22.37, 44.63, and then they just stumble home from there. And really everyone was, and West Saratoga was stumbling the least, and that was the reason that West Saratoga is able to get the win. But this is like, you just look at the times, and if we're going to throw out the fillies and they're almost a second slower for the boys, how can you back the boys in this spot, right?
Yeah, there was nothing. I mean, I agree with what Chris said. I'm not mad at Risk It. I'm disappointed. I needed to see somebody succeed and be awesome out of this to give me some excitement for, if not even the Breeders' Cup, say the Kentucky Jockey Club in a few months. But I'm looking through this field. The only thing that would have made this better is if Market Street had won. Did you see what happened with the website? I did, I should say. Yeah, my idiot butt, 5 races within the short span that they were, couldn't handle it, and I put all over the channel, the website, the socials that Market Street won this race. Oh no, Market Street crossed the finish line.
I believe it's stopped is what we got there. From the
yeah, I mean, I guess if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah,
Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, if you flip the order, you were right.
Yeah. Seize the Gray I thought would be an interesting one for Dwayne Lucas. Now, he did only finish 2 next behind second, so there is that, but he was off the board. Seize the Gray feels like that kind of Lucas horse that we're going to see. Let's see, it's September 18th. Over under 3 more starts for Seize the Gray before the year ends.
Over. I mean, there's 3 more months, right? It's 2.5 months. There's no way this horse doesn't run that many races. With 3.5 months, over 3 starts easily. I mean, this horse is probably going to get drafted in like the 45th to 50th spot in the draft, because you're just going to see the horse get run in 10 prep races going up to the Derby.
I forget who it was. We actually found that horse, and he actually did run a lot. He didn't do jack shit all year, but we did find a Lucas horse that we almost drafted. Shoddy, you and Davey can take Seize the Gray with your 5th round pick.
There you go.
There you go. That'll be your play there. Any final thoughts on the Iroquois other than these are a bunch of slow horses that probably should have run at Charlestown?
Bet against them all. That would be my this is just This was a bad race, and they went way too fast. And so I guess if you want to come back with Patriot Spirit and Patriot Spirit sprints, and we're going like 6 furlongs versus the mile, okay. I mean, I can get behind that. Maybe if Risk It shortens up a little bit, I can get behind that. I don't want any of these horses going 2 turns based on what we saw.
Shoddy says, David, we've been exposed. We have a leak. We figured out their draft system. Second greatest stakes win for trainer Larry Demeriti. I apologize if I said his name wrong. But he did have a horse named Memorial Maniac win a grade 3 race at some point. It was called the, Stars and Stripes Turf Stakes at the old Arlington Park. You remember the old Stars and Stripes Stakes?
I do remember.
Yeah, that was a good time. Before we get out of here, question from Chris Maiello. Risk It and Seize the Grey are added to the list of Saratoga maidens that haven't ran back to the maiden numbers. Do we need to start being skeptical about the summer figs?
No, I think that what you need to be skeptical of is that it's really hard to run back to that when you're stretching out in these type of races. And so you got to look at the distance as well. I mean, if you look back at the race which Seize the Grey won, there's 2 next out winners. Global Perspective next out jumps from a 69 buyer to a 76 buyer for Chad Brown. And then Private Desire, who ran 4th in that race, got a 68 buyer that day, jumps back and runs a 94, winning at Aqueduct the other day at 4-1. So a huge move forward there for Private Desire out of this race. The one thing I would say is Seize the Grey won over a sloppy track. And we've long been skeptical of sloppy track buyers, especially for 2-year-olds or first-time starters that are 3-year-olds next time out. That, to me, is something that you do need to be very aware of, especially when you're jumping up into stakes company.
I'm glad you brought up Private Desire, because they're thinking about Champagne Stakes straight off of that maiden win. And it's something that I had mentioned before about when Arcangelo won the Travers Stakes. Afterwards, we talked about like what Castellano's doing this without the big mounts from Brown, from Pletcher, like he's doing all these little barns. It seems like as soon as he won the Travers, he's been riding for Pletcher every time I look. And in this case, he rode Private Desire both starts for Pletcher.
Yeah, he's getting Brown and Pletcher mounts. He's got some Brown turf mounts recently as well.
They're starting to come around on him again, aren't they?
Well, I mean, he changed agents. I think it was 2 years ago, and we saw a drastic win percentage improvement. And I mean, look, he's got some horses, and he's putting the horses in very, very good positions to win. If they run well for him, and they're in the right spot. So that's really what you're looking for from a jockey, is do they consistently give your horse a chance to win if the horse fires? Because the worst possible thing that can happen is you spend all this time getting these horses ready, and they fire, and you waste it because the jockey isn't in the right spot for them to be able to get the W. Joe Rosario. What was that?
Shoddy wants to know, where is Practical Move starting? He's had several steady works here dating back to August at Del Mar and then now at Santa Anita. If Tim Yakteen's goal is the Dirt Mile, which I think could be really good for him, he loves Santa Anita. Breeders' Cup Sprint Championship? That's this coming weekend. That might work. He just gets a 6 furlongs just to spruce him up, and then because it's either that or Awesome Again.
Yeah, I'd rather see him in the sprint than the Awesome Again. Don't love Practical Move. Trying to get a mile and a quarter. But we'll see. We'll see where they end up putting him. Obviously, bigger purse in the Awesome Again. It's also a British Cup win you're in for the Classic, I believe. So I could see why you'd want to do that. It's $300,000 for the Awesome Again. The Sprint Championship, $200,000. Yeah, I like the 6 furlongs better for Practical Move. I had questions about the mile and a quarter in the Derby for Practical Move, but we know he loves Santa Anita too. So I could see the argument for why you wanted to run him there against the big boys. And I don't expect that field to be a bunch of world beaters either. Do you?
No, it'll be my boy Dr. Scheibel, Brickyard Ride, and Chosen Vron if he decides to show up. So yeah, I mean some sprinters, but
maybe Anarchist will be back there. I mean,
yeah.
Because they're the California
CZ Rocket because it's Peter Miller.
They'll probably get 10 horses. It's just that 3 of them are good and the rest are kind of blah. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. The Awesome Again, I don't expect to be a massive field either. So I think you could make an argument. You could really try and go both. And if the Awesome Again draws no speed, maybe that's a positive for Practical Move.
It'll be his first start wherever he does make his start. We haven't seen him since he hasn't raced since the Santa Anita Derby on April 8th. So it'll be, what is that, 5.5 months, almost 6 months with no race action, and then 5 months almost without any, he was aiming up for the Kentucky Derby and just got sick, so he was about to run in it, but still. Yep. A lot of time for him to come. I don't know. I looked at the condition book for Santa Anita, and as far as stakes goes, the only 2 things that fit him because of how often he's won, he's not allowance capable anymore, 4 wins, so it's got to be probably the Sprint Championship or Awesome Again. And personally, off of that long of a break, if your goal is the Dirt Mile, I would try and do 6 furlongs and get him prepped up for that one. But we did have a question from Nick Sievers. We talked about this right before we went live. Annual trip back to Parks on Thursday for the next Magic Mike show?
Hard no. Nope.
Hard no, Nick. No.
Hard no. We did that the last 2 years, and I think like 2 races in, we were both pissed we talked about Parks at all. If you look at the fields, I mean, they're not exactly there are some full fields, but man, do I not want to bet those races based on who's in there. The Pennsylvania Derby, I think it's 11. I assume Reincarnate's going to scratch because he drew the 11 post, and we've seen Bob Baffert do that in a couple places recently. So I'd assume he's going to be out of there. It feels like Saudi Crown should win that race by 15 lengths if Parks plays like Parks usually does, and Reincarnate's not in it.
That was a good Reincarnate joke. By the way, Faiza scratched out of the Torrey Pines because she had post 9. Later on, Baffert won from post 9 with the horse. And then also, Faiza hasn't worked since then. I think Faiza's Dunsey. I think we've seen the last of Faiza. All right, we're gonna do Santa Anita. Yes, they will have more 5-horse races. Well, more than 5. I see what Charles had a mistake there.
You're trying to make it a positive.
Santa Anita got more than 5 horses each race this year is what Charles meant. Sorry, Charles. I also was having a brain fart. It was not that hard to understand. They will up through the Breeders' Cup winning urine races, and as soon as that ends, we're gonna have a bunch of 5-horse fields and Calbreds, and then suddenly it's Breeders' Cup week and it's gonna be all full again. So that's how it goes.
Yeah. So we're right now. The plan is Santa Anita, with the possible about face to take Aqueduct if the Santa Anita fields are not very big. I think we're both expecting them to be decent and be competitive races. If they are not big or not competitive, we'll probably do Aqueduct instead. But yeah, that's one of the reasons, Chris, that when a 99-1 shot wins a turf sprint and then does not win that race 8 months later because of a drug failure, it makes you a lot less interested in going back and playing Parks again.
Yeah, well, that, and you see how many times Jamie Ness is in the entry box on that day and in those races. I'm like, no, I'm good. I got to waste a bunch of money guessing whether or not that horse has been properly juiced up this race. Yeah.
So we'll either do Aqueduct or Santa Anita on Thursday, depending on the field sizes. Santa Anita gets the preference. Aqueduct comes in second.
Gary Calaroso, who's going to be at the Breeders' Cup? I'll be there. Well, Mike and I live in Southern California, so it'd be very hard for us to explain how we couldn't make it to Breeders' Cup. Dr. Tang, I assume, will be there for the same reason Mike is, which is not to see the races, but to be in the BCBC. And I would assume Aaron and Jared will be here. Shotty's 50-50 right now. Probably not Dr. Miranda. She's getting married in December. I think they're saving up for that. And I know she went to Saratoga a couple times, so she's probably not going to make it to Breeders' Cup. But Mike, Aaron, Jared, Dr. Tang, and I will be there.
I will give Dr. Miranda a tip of the cap if she leaves the husband home with the baby and goes to the Breeders' Cup. I would love to see it. I would. We'd have a lot of fun. Cool. Yeah. By the way, to Gary and to everybody else who's going to be there, if you're going to be at Breeders' Cup or anytime we're at the track, let us know. We'd love to hang out with you. Come say hi, to have some drinks. It's all a good time. Shoot the shit. Listen, it was a shorter show, but we didn't have that much to talk about. I thought we did a good job. Do you have any final thoughts, any football thoughts, anything at all that you want to talk about? Open forum time. We got 2 Monday night games. I'm really angry at the fact that they did not space them out more. Someone needs to explain to me why they think it's a good idea to have one football game start at 4:30 and the other football game start at 5:30 on networks owned by the same company. Like, why aren't we starting one at 4 and one at 7? Who possibly thought this was a good idea? Anyway, you've got 2 Monday night football games. I like the Saints -3. I like the under in that game as well. You can get it at 40 right now. I like Pittsburgh plus the 2.5 against Cleveland at home, but not as much as I like the other 2 bets.
That's right.
I mean, it's absolutely illogical why ABC and ESPN both need a football game on an hour apart in the start time. It pisses me off. It's hard to watch. You can't. It's almost impossible to watch both games as closely as I would like to watch both games. And neither is great. I mean, honestly, the Saints Panthers game could be pretty boring, but actually both could be pretty boring. They both had totals like high 30s at one point this week. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't love the fact that we've got 2 games going on at the same time on a standalone Monday night.
Oh shoot. Almost I caught myself. We're a week off. Santa Anita's not this weekend, it's the weekend after.
Oh no. God.
So here's what we can do. We can do Aqueduct, which has a grade 3. We can do Churchill, which has 4 races for 3-year-olds. or we can do Parks.
God,
Here's the thing: we could do Remington. Remington is already drawn for Sunday. They're already out. We've got the Oklahoma Derby, the Remington Park Oaks. We would make a lot of people in this chat happy.
All right, let's do Remington.
Yeah, there we go. We did it, everybody. We got Mike to say yes to Remington.
All right, we'll do Remington Park on Sunday. I don't want to do Parks. And honestly, we probably should do Parks. More people would care if we did Parks. But you know what? We're here for the people. And I would much rather support Remington than I would Parks. So let's do it.
People over Parks. People over Parks. There we go. By the way, for Oklahoma Derby, I know that David Cleveland, there he is right on the chat. You can see him at the Oklahoma Derby. I'm pretty positive Aaron Halterman will be there as well. So try and get down to Remington Park for the Oklahoma Derby night, because it is night racing on Sunday. We'll see you here on Thursday at 5 Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific to cover the late pick 5 at Remington Park on Oklahoma Derby Day. Are you excited, Mike?
Actually, yes. I've been to Remington Park on opening night before. Absolutely loved the racetrack. Thought it was phenomenal. Actually, a huge Oklahoma City fan. If you ever get the chance to go to Oklahoma City, I know there's not all these attractions and reasons to go. They're a really cool city. So check out Oklahoma City if you get a chance. And I gotta ask the question. What's your go-to karaoke? What's your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, that is a good question. I've only done karaoke a few times. What do you have one? I'll think about it.
I've got two.
Okay.
And they're very different. Either Lose Yourself by Eminem, depending on how drunk I am.
Ooh, yep. Mm-hmm.
But I have to be pretty drunk for that one. Or Turn Around, which is also just a phenomenal karaoke song.
It is. You've got to be able to. You got to have some range for that I don't possess.
No.
If anybody saw my Angel of the
character for that, you don't have to actually hit any of the
That's
notes.
True.
You just have to make it fun, and that's a fun song if you get everybody into it. And most of the bar usually knows Turn Around as well, so it can be a fun one to do for karaoke. La Bamba, ooh, that's an interesting.
La Bamba, I've never heard that, but that is tequila. Yeah. Wait, was David talking about what he's drinking at Remington Park, or what his favorite karaoke song is?
It's got to be karaoke song, although it could be the Remington Park drink as well.
He just answered it too. Car Ramrod, we're asking you what karaoke song you would sing, not what you're doing right now. He says I touched myself.
Keep it to yourself here. I would love to see Doc singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. We should try and recreate that. The silhouette or the lip from the bottom, like foreshadowed, or the four heads that they do from the music video, the diamond shape. We should do that with you, myself, Doc, and Shoddy. We'll draft Shoddy into this at Breeders' Cup.
If we did album covers for the guides, that would be a fun one.
Coming next week at racingnews.com. Check it out.
I can just see Shoddy currently working on the drawing of that right now. Yeah.
Well, she would be if she wasn't managing a sports bar during 2 Monday night football games that are apparently an hour apart. So
that's fair. Sports bar,
I guess that's better
way to watch those two games. That's better than sitting in your house and having like the split screens on YouTube TV.
Mr. Brightside, that's a good one. I would say I've definitely karaoke'd Lose It before. You Ought to Know.
That's
by Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
I like that one because you can really get into that one too.
One of the most spiteful songs that is out there, and you can hear it when she sings it, how much vitriol she has for it's the Cut It Out.
Dave Coulier from Full House.
Yeah. And first off, good on Dave Coulier, because I did not know that that's the good job, buddy. You really pissed her off. And secondly, man, she was into singing that song. But I love that. I like when you can hear the passion coming through from a singer, and that's got to be top 5. I'm really pissed off when I'm singing this, and you can tell when you hear it songs.
Uncle Joey. Uncle Joey, that's his name on Full House.
Who knew that Uncle Joey was the heartbreaker, not Uncle Jesse? Yeah,
not John Stamos, no. So he did lose he wasn't good enough to keep his Rebecca Romaine happy either, so. Listen, you can be a great god like John Stamos, but it still isn't good enough to keep Rebecca Romaine happy.
One was the heartbreaker, one was heartbroken.
There you go. I like that. Well, this was a fun show. I'm glad that we got into the karaoke talk. I also, Freaks and Geeks by Childish Gambino, if I'm the right kind of drunk, but I also I say the right kind of drunk because I need to remember that I'm white and the singer is not. And there are certain things that I can't say that he does. So I have to be the right kind of drunk to make sure that I filter.
That's why Lose Yourself is a good one.
Yes, it is. That's a great one. And you are a great one for watching us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Magic Mike Show 498. And yes, I saw somebody ask it. Episode 500 is next Monday. So what better way to celebrate than talking about the Oklahoma Derby and the Pennsylvania Derby next month?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Oh, this is what makes Mike quit.
We've got to figure out what we're going to do for 500. I mean, that's a lot of episodes.
It is a lot of episodes. I'm not ready for it.
No.
It's like I've been waiting for it, and all of a sudden it's here, and I'm like, I don't know what to do to celebrate 500. If you have ideas, let us know in the comment section or in the chat or on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kellaward. He is at Somobomb 18, number 1, number 8. Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. Make sure you visit racingdudes.com for free picks for every race, every track across the country. You can also get the Somobombs. I know you said Del Mar is closed, but what tracks are you tackling now that Del Mar is officially over?
We'll be at Aqueduct. We hit, I think it was late pick 5 on Friday at Aqueduct. Maybe it was the early pick 5, one of the two. So it was an okay weekend. Didn't have any big scores like the last 2 weekends. It's still been a pretty good month for the Somobombs here at a little over 15,000 in cashes now for the month. So we'll take that every month of the year if we could. I guess I have to do Parks. So Parks will probably be on there for Saturday. And then Aqueduct most likely. And then I'm looking forward to getting Santa Anita Open, because when I can do an East Coast, West Coast track, that's when I like it the most. I love the California circuit, and we had a ton of success at Del Mar, so hopefully we can keep that rolling.
These are some good ideas for episode 500. Get Coach Prime. I don't know, he's not doing anything right now.
Well, he is basically saying yes to every media request possible, so I'd say there's a 50-50 chance it happened. Or
a karaoke show. The problem with the trouble with the karaoke show is that even Mike and I have a very slight delay because of the internet feed. So trying to sync it all up properly is just going to make everybody's ears bleed.
I have also never karaoke'd, and this, I guess it makes me old. I've never karaoke'd in the cell phone social media days where you could ever be recorded karaokeing. And I do think like one of the things that allows me to karaoke is alcohol and knowing no one else will ever see it again. And the combination of those two things will not be happening on the 500th show. So unlikely that the karaoke thing will happen. If we did karaoke somewhere, I would make everyone put their cell phones in a bag before anyone started singing so that no one could put that shit up, because I have no interest in everybody seeing that.
It should be like what at Breeders' Cup last year on Saturday night, we went to that country bar. That's how it should be. We had a lot of fun. Yeah. Nothing bad happened.
Nope.
But there was just no record of it ever happening. It happened. I was deaf for 2 days because of the music, and that was that.
I threw a football.
And Jared disappeared for an hour, but that was...
Well, you disappeared for like an hour during dinner.
During dinner, yeah.
Yes, and we had to figure out where you were. I was throwing a football. Yeah, that was not true. I was throwing a football from car to car at stoplights on the way home. That was a mess of a night.
Wait, what?
Yeah, at stoplights, I was rolling down the windows on Jared's truck and throwing the football to other cars who were stopped, and they would throw it back. You don't remember this?
Aaron was trying to keep my head from hitting the ground in the back of the truck, so no, I don't remember it.
I mean, that's also the night I threw your pillows down in the basement, and you didn't realize it.
And you covered me in ramen.
Yes, that's it.
Dried ramen. Mike Somich is a wonderful human being. Never stay the night in the same place as him when he's been drinking, because he is... You're a mean son bitch.
I'm not mean. I like to have fun.
You had fun. No, none of it was mean. Yeah. Jared was finding his lost keys for an hour and a half, and he was looking in some very interesting places. We hope you are an interesting place on Thursday at 5 p.m. 2 Pacific, right here for the Magic Mike Show. Can't join us? Catch it on the podcast. And, of course, make sure you follow us on Twitter. I've already said that part. We'll be back Thursday covering Remington Park. I almost said Santa Anita. I knew that was wrong. Remington Park here for episode 499. Please join us on Thursday. Until then, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week, especially with the 2 Monday Night Football games playing on top of each other. How the hell are you going to do it? Good luck.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.